Okay, we are officially recording. So, welcome to the Ultra Running Sam podcast. Scott Jenkins.
Oh, thanks, Sam. It's great to be here. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you. Cheers for coming on. So, we were just having a quick chat before we hit record about the joys of driving down around the M25 and getting stuck in traffic, and that was
Bal-
my horrific.
balancing ultra running and work. It's the ongoing task, right?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I mean, obviously, that's why. Well, yeah, speaking for myself, that's why I'm not a pro, obviously, because I've got a job and a family. I haven't got time to train like a pro.
No, me neither. And I work alongside the ultra running, and it's not really an ultra distance, but I was stuck in traffic on Friday afternoon on North Circular in London, which I'm sure you're familiar is a terrible road. And I looked at the distance to home, and it was 8 miles, and the time to drive it was an hour and 6 minutes. And I did think to myself, I could easily run this and quicker than I could drive it. So
Yeah, quicker than
maybe I need
quicker.
to put the ultra run into more use on a day-to-day basis.
Wasn't there some story about thingy off Top Gear about him getting his Porsche stuck in the what was it Hammond? Getting his Porsche stuck in the snow, and he ran home he got his running shoes in his car, and he ran home, left his car in a snowdrift or something.
I mean, if they wanted to send me a Porsche, I would be very happy to test that theory out and get it stuck anywhere as long as I can keep the Porsche. That's fine.
Yeah, me too. I'll go for that deal. So if Top Gear, if you're watching or listening, which I doubt very much they are, send two Porsches, please.
Yeah, well, you can have Richard Hammond. I'll have the Porsche. If you're asking Top Gear, I'm asking Porsche for the
I think
Porsche.
I'd rather have his old smelly trainers than him. Yeah. Right. We're off topic slightly. Okay. So right, we're here to talk about this amazing achievement that you are the first Brit to complete the Triple Crown of 200's. And you did that in 2023. Now, before we dive into that, the question I always ask every guest is that if if you're a superhero, you have a backstory. So as a Scott Jenkins, the superhero, what is your backstory? How did you get into trail running? How did you get into ultras? How did you get to the point where you're churning out 200 milers in 3 of them in 10 weeks?
Well, before I answer that question as well, and thank you for the kind introduction, I'd just like to say congratulations to you as well on your recent accomplishment completing Spine.
Oh, not dying.
Congratulations on not dying, Sam. You've done a wonderful job.
Yeah,
Running Spine, massive respect and huge congratulations on that, man. It's
Cheers, mate.
it's an
Yeah, appreciate
accomplishment.
that. I can't imagine doing 3 in a row though in 10 weeks.
Yeah, it was rather challenging, especially the first two were only 2 weeks apart, which made it really difficult. But before I kind of get into that, superhero is a bit generous. I think enthusiastic amateur is probably a more appropriate title for it. But I've been ultra running for 13 years now. I've been running all my life. Really loved running when I was in school, like middle distance, that kind of thing. Played football, rugby, not to a particularly high standard, kept playing footy up until about the age of 30. Decided to jack that in after we lost a cup final. I thought, do you know what? I'm done playing football. I've just had enough now. So that was the last game I ever played, and I thought I'll just go back to running. And I was running kind of middle distances again, like half marathons, and I was chatting to a bloke in a gym, a guy called Colin, where I used to work in this gym as a personal trainer. And he used to come in every week, and he was always smiling, enthusiastic. And I said to him, it's obviously Wales, it's chucking it down the rain. I said, Colin, why are you so happy? And he said, oh, I feel like I've had a second chance at life. And I said, well, why is that? He said, well, I've been through a cardiac, a significant event in my life. And I feel like I've got that second opportunity, so I don't want to waste it. And it didn't really resonate straight away, but I started thinking about those words and started thinking, well, what am I doing with my own life that when I'm older, I can look back on and be proud of? And for me, I wanted to challenge myself. And I think great things happen when you're outside your comfort zone, when you're doing something that's a little bit scary and you're not sure whether you can do it. When you do accomplish it, that sense of accomplishment internally just gives you the belief you can go on and achieve more things. So Long story short, me and my brother decided to run 2,000 miles across America from Boston in Massachusetts to Austin in Texas. We did a marathon a day for 75 days, and we raised a lot for charity. And I thought to myself, well, there's something in this, you know, I got to have an adventure and I got to do some good at the same time. So I just thought to myself, I want to try to continue to do that as much as I possibly can in life. And, you know, we were chatting before we came on about that work-life balance. And for me, I have found ultra running to be a great leveler against, you know, the pressure and relentlessness of working in a corporate environment. You know, it's full on. It's a busy job. Going out on the trail in the middle of nowhere, nobody can contact you on the phone, just gives me a good balance in my life. And over the course of the last 13 years, I've continued to do all my running, whether it's challenges that I've created or races that I get involved with for charity. And specifically over the last 8 years, Operation Smile, which is a charity I'm an ambassador for. And that's it, really.
So that was quite a big thing to do with your brother then, wasn't it? Just how did that sort of come about? What was the sort of origin of that idea?
It was, well, we wanted to raise money for charity. So we were chatting, and our friend Rusty, who lived in Boston in the US at the time, was from Texas. And we're like, well, you know, wouldn't it, you ever go for those runs where you're like, I could just keep running for days? And literally now we do, the two of us, which is rather ironic. But we just kind of thought, well, let's go and do something for a charity that we all feel passionate about. So Rusty picked Salute America's Heroes, my brother picked Help the Heroes, and I picked the British Heart Foundation because Colin, the guy that was in the gym, was the kind of coordinator of the Healthy Hearts group in South Wales in the gym where that was. So I thought, well, you know, let's try and give something back to the local community at the same time, and that's what we did. It was, I think, real fly by the seat of your pants stuff. You know, we turned up at a bar in Boston, which I actually visited like January just gone, and we ran 26 miles like south west of Boston, finished it for the day, went to the nearest town, tried to get a motel, got up the next day, went back to where we'd staked out and carried on. And that's how we did it. Google Maps was, you know, iPhones were pretty newish then, and you didn't have data plans that would cover your cell phone in the US. So it was a wicked adventure, and you know, I'm sure we all learned a lot about ourselves doing that. And yeah, really, when those moments, like I'll definitely look back on, I guess, when I get older.
Yeah, absolutely. So going from that sort of beginnings of wanted an adventure, and then to the point where you've last year you did the Triple Crown. What was in between? What sort of, you know, have you focused on? So obviously the 200s are you know, they're a fairly new thing, aren't they? They've been around for a few years, haven't they? But obviously there's no, you know, apart from Wild Horse 200s, you know,
Yeah.
races, there isn't really, and the Spine, which is like just like a different beast altogether to a lot of races. But sort of how have you sort of gone from, have you managed to sort of build up to the point where you could go and do those 3 races in like 10 weeks?
Yeah, I mean, like I've personally gone to do different challenges and different runs, whether it be with myself or with my brother over the course of like getting to this point in 2023. But some examples of that: I ran across Iceland with my brother, ran across Death Valley twice. We did like a relay around Wales, cycled across America as a party of 4. Loads of different things, really. Badwater 135 in 2021. I've run Moab 240 3 times now. Cocodona 250. So loads of just building resilience, I guess, and experience over the course of the last 8-9 years, I suppose. And the interesting thing is a lot of people kind of get into running, they do races and then go into like setting their own challenges. Whereas I kind of came from it the other way of setting our own challenges and moving into races, because that was what allowed me to do it alongside work, rather than going to take 3 months off. As yeah, my boss wouldn't be very happy with that. So, I found that this way works really well for me to enable me to still have an adventure, but still get out, do some good alongside what my career aspirations are as well. So yeah, I love the 200-mile distance, even though it's like you say, it's a relatively new distance. I love the camaraderie of it, I think, first and foremost. And did you find that in Spine? Like people just
Yeah,
want to help each other, which I think is lovely.
I think I think when you anything sort of over, well, I mean anything like probably from like 100 miler upwards, like you make friends, don't you? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
you make friends in ultras, like full stop. But the longer they are, it seems the more friends you probably make, and the better friends they are, because you spend such a lot of time with people, don't you? And you end up sort of becoming buddies on the race. I know that's something that even though I was explaining to somebody, and I don't want to talk about the spine because I talk about it too much, but we were talking about sort of spending time with people on that race, and I'd sort of said, were you running with people? And I was like, well, yeah, I ran with a guy and a woman, and for a few hours, and then I was like, actually it was probably more like 20 hours I spent running with them.
Yeah.
And it was just because in the context of that race, which for me lasted 6 days, with everything that happened, the 18 hours just disappears. It's just like running with somebody in a 50k and spending an hour with them.
It really is, isn't it?
but,
It is.
but I think yeah, I mean, have you sort of, is this what makes you go back? Because I know I only ran in the US once, and that was just when I went over to Western States to do some filming and stuff, and did a follow cam. And from that point, I've been desperate to go back because I absolutely love the States and running there.
Mm.
Is this something that you've sort of found yourself, that you did one race over there and had to keep going back?
Yeah, I think so. I love running in both countries. I think the UK and the States has some great terrain and a great community to it as well. But I think in particular for the States, like you do get some more extreme environments and temperatures. You know, Spine is a great example of a UK race with extreme climate. You know, bad water is the opposite end, right? You know, 135 miles is 52 degrees. It's the opposite end of the spectrum, perhaps not what we as Brits are used to. And the problem solving of like dealing with those kind of climates, dealing with those kind of problems, wildlife as well, that you just don't always encounter. I really enjoy the problem solving side of running ultras. And you know, I think the States, again, you get rewarded with some beautiful views, like you say, beautiful scenery. Same as the UK, really. It's just, yeah, been lucky enough to get out there and do some crazy races, which is awesome. It's a good question, actually. I'm not sure what your opinion is, but do you prefer to be cold and warm up, or do you prefer to be really hot and cool down? Discussing this on Saturday with somebody I was running with.
Um, I think I think that whenever I've been in really hot races, um, I say I've always struggled. I think you just do struggle anyway, don't you, in the heat? I think I've had a few races where my stomach has gone south because of the heat,
Yeah.
pushing too much. But I've never had stomach issues in a cold race. So I don't know. And I think I probably spend more time racing in the UK, running in the UK. So never really, I mean, the idea of like bad water just doesn't appeal to me at all. That's not, a few people have sort of said, of all the iconic races around the world, that is clearly one of them. But for me, that doesn't appeal. So that probably answers your question. I'd rather be cold and get warm than, because you can.
Well, I would love to hear some of your tips on warming up when you're cold as well at some point, because Spine's definitely on my list of races
Yeah,
I would
you should
do.
definitely do it. You should definitely do it. I think a few people have asked me if I'd do it again, and I interviewed Nikki Spinks, and she said that she said the same thing that I did, was that yeah, maybe do it again, but the chances of getting that weather again was like, if you could pick the weather for the spine, like that iconic weather of freezing cold, snow, relatively, yeah, there was a few days of high winds towards the end, but most of it was like calm and crisp and freezing cold. You couldn't really pick any better weather for it. So
Yeah.
whether I'd go back, but the idea of going in it raining for like 5 or 6 days straight, like proper British weather. I don't know. I mean, but I was prepared for that. I did all my
Yeah.
training all the way through those months where it did rain. I'm sure it rained in Wales as well, where it was just like torrential rain for weeks and weeks and weeks. And I was just out in it, completely soaked all the time, thinking this is what I've got to put up with. But
Yeah.
how did you? So that's being British and training for a British race for you, being a Brit and then going out to races like Badwater and then these big desert 200-mile ultras. How on earth do you prepare for that?
It's a challenging one, and yeah, thanks for asking that question because I think sometimes like you forget like, oh my God, I'm gonna go from the cold British winter into like running in like 30 or 50-degree heat or whatever it is. And I think one of the ones that was a definite coming struggle coming out of it was going from April in 2022 to British weather, pissing down more winter, to run in Arizona right at the beginning of May. And it was so hot. It was like 38 degrees and you're running like 20-mile sections. And you know yourself, like you can't carry that amount of fluid that you need for that kind of distance. So learning how to manage fluid and stuff like that has been key on the hotter races. But from this side of the pond, what I would do was try to acclimatize to heat in the last kind of 2 to 3 weeks. I don't think there's any point in doing it before that point. You just lose the adaptation, similar as if you were training for altitude. Um, my wife had an ingenious idea when we were training for Badwater in 2021. Obviously, lockdown was still around, and I didn't know where I knew that I was in the race. I got in 2020, but obviously it was cancelled. 2021, I didn't know whether I was going to get to run the race because of the travel restrictions. And she said, why don't we install some heaters into the garage, which is basically I've turned it into a gym with a treadmill. So yeah, all right, that's a good idea. So we put some little, small electric heaters in. I was like, this isn't really working. It's only getting up to like 30 degrees, and Badwater is going to be like 52. So I was like, right, what can we do? And Abs, my wife, said, why don't you see if we can get the panels that you use in Bikram yoga, the hot yoga? So I looked into it, and it wasn't too expensive. It was worth the outlay for the help with the training, if you like. So we installed these heaters onto the roof of the garage, and basically it heats the room. The hottest I've had it is 58 degrees on the other side of this door, and it's absolutely miserable, I can attest. But that worked so well because I could just come in and do like an hour session on the treadmill, play around with the gradients and the speeds, obviously, and then you'd get off and you'd be absolutely drenched. And when I went out to Death Valley, yeah, I felt good for the heat. But the other thing was I was really lucky because I think it was about maybe the beginning of April. We weren't getting anywhere. We didn't know if we were going to be able to travel, and we emailed the British Olympic Association. Didn't get a response. And I picked up the phone and I was like, hi, really random. Can I speak to someone about this? Eventually, after like a week or so, they put me through to this lady, and she said, send me the information, get me a letter from the director of the race, send me the information. So I sent her all this information, nothing. And then literally a week and a half before Badwater was due to start, I'd done all this training, not knowing. And then out of nowhere, I just get this email one afternoon with these attachments from the US Olympic Committee. Basically, it was travel dispensation to be able to travel during COVID to go to Badwater. So I was very lucky that I managed to do the heat training, and it definitely works. So yeah, if anyone's thinking about doing that, I reckon heaters and a treadmill, good place to start for sure.
That's pretty cool. Getting an email like that into, I suppose it's not every day everyone's applying for that kind of dispensation.
No, I felt so lucky as well. It was mad. Like you turn up at the airport and there was someone from Department of Homeland Security in Heathrow, like checking you as you came in, and you had to do all these different things. And then yeah, I really need to print the letter off actually and put it in a frame
Yeah,
somewhere.
get it in frame.
Yeah, it was a cool email to get that one for sure.
That's one to show. That's the kind of thing that not yeah, none of your mates are going to have that, are they? Yeah,
Well, one of them has, because I persuaded him to come and pace me, and he was like, "We're not really going, are we?" And I'm like, Yeah, we are. I've just got this letter and it's got your name on it as well. So one of them's got it, even though he's not really a runner. He still he came out to Badwater and he paced me. He ended up doing 60 miles because I only had two crew members for the race. So
That's
yeah,
brutal. That is brutal. That,
yeah,
that's enough for anyone, isn't it? 100K's worth of
of
that.
that yeah,
I know what you mean about the yeah, the heat training thing. I don't know if you listen to Jason Coop, his
yeah,
podcast
yeah,
about, because he sort of, he really geeks out on that kind of stuff, and I think that's about, I think I remember him saying that was about right, wasn't it? Is it 3 weeks? There's no point in doing it anymore, like further out from the race, because it doesn't seem to work. It's like an adaptation that happens within a few weeks, isn't it? And then it's, yeah.
yeah.
I was remember hearing about Jim Walmsley training for Western States, and how he used to drive, when he used to drive to the trailhead, he'd drive, because that was obviously Flagstaff, and it's red hot there, isn't it, as well? He used to drive with
Yeah.
his windows up, no air conditioning on in his car, and he'd drive like an hour's drive in that heat, absolutely sweltering, do his run, get back in the car again, windows still up, no air conditioning, and drive back. And
It is crazy stuff like that. I mean, yeah, it does work as well. It pays off. Getting comfortable being uncomfortable, right?
yeah, that's it. But yeah, it does. You're right. Actually, it does work. Because I know when I flew out to Western States and did that bit of just sort of running. I mean, I ran a follow cam from Roby Point down to the finish.
Yeah.
Over the course of 2 shifts, I ran about 30 miles, I think,
Oh
just
wow.
running people backwards and forwards. And in the day there, it was like 30. I think it got to 36, 37 degrees. And for me, I don't think I've ever done a race in that type of heat before. And if I've ran, it's probably only been for like an hour or something in that kind of heat. But in the preceding like time before that happened, that year 2022, we had like a heat wave over here, and it was like we had a couple of weeks of 30
I remember
degrees.
that. Yeah.
And I remember going paddleboarding like one day before work at like 6 in the morning. It was like 25 degrees at 6 o'clock in the morning.
So nice, isn't it?
And I was like, this is amazing. And then I went to America. And I think fortunately, like that bit of sort of 2 weeks of heat wave here and being out in it and doing stuff kind of paid off, because for hours and hours and hours just running backwards and forwards with follow cam, like sprinting, trying to catch people on the track and stuff. So yeah, you're right. It does pay off. So what else have you sort of, what else is in your arsenal of training tactics for doing those races over there in those kind of environments? Because I know you've got the weather, haven't you? But you've got the terrain. I know some of the terrain is like nice single track. Some in the States, there's nice forest roads and stuff, and those kind of things. What was the terrain like on each of those three races?
Yeah. So for the Triple Crown, it's a massive difference on the terrain. I think the first thing that I thought about going into the race was the altitude in the first race, which is Tahoe.
Yeah.
So Tahoe 200 takes place in Lake Tahoe, California. So takes place on the Tahoe Rim Trail, and to get up onto that trail, the lake itself, I think, is at about 7,000 feet in
Wow.
altitude. The peaks of the trail where you're running, they top out at like 10, 11,000 feet. So me coming from sea level in the UK, I knew was going to be a challenge. So the first thing I was thinking about was like, okay, I've got to get there at least a week before to be able to adapt to the altitude, which is what I did and was able to do. And then you're thinking about the climbs. So like, some of the climbs out there, we struggle to find that distance in a climb in the UK. Like there's one that sticks out for me, which is in the second race in Bigfoot, and it's climb Quartz Ridge, and it's 18 miles with like 7,000 feet of gain. And it's all on like unmaintained trail. Like there's, bushwhacking basically and climbing over trees that are the size of bloody buses. It's relentless and a really, really technical race. So like I was thinking, okay, what can I do to, try and train for climbs like that? And I'm very fortunate. I'm coached by somebody else from Flagstaff, actually, from by Jeff Browning. So I've literally got a call with Jeff in about, well, about an hour's time. So yeah, what we did is that we came up with a couple of like different ideas. So there's a hill in Richmond Park, which isn't very long, probably like 0.25 of a mile. It's steep enough, like, but it's just not long enough. So what we did was I would do runs on the hill, I would do hikes on the hill, I'd do runs and hikes on the hill. I bought a mini power sled from Rogue Fitness, which is the CrossFit brand. Portable power sled, just got a little post in the middle, got two straps on it. You can attach it and you can hike up and down a hill with it on. All you got to do is put some light plates on it. It makes it very challenging. And you get that out of breathness and that burning in your quads and your hamstrings and your calves that you get if you did a really long climb. So I was like, actually, this kind of feels the same. I think this might work. And then, I can do that every day, obviously. So like we might do a session in the gym on the treadmill where we do 7-11, so 7 seconds of hiking followed by 11 seconds of running. Or we might do another session, which is like, I don't know, an hour-long run, and every 10 minutes we get off the treadmill and I'd do box steps. And then there'd be like another session where it's an hour-long hike. I'd wear a weighted vest for the whole hike and then get off every 10 minutes and do box steps. So like those kind of things. So you're constantly kind of putting your body in a situation that you know is going to be similar to what you're facing. And if you can replicate that, then I think it's a good place to start. And, certainly for the first race, Tahoe, it is that like quintessential smooth single track, like, long climbs, but fairly gradual once you're up on the rim trail itself. There would be big climbs up to the rim and back down, but then when you're on the trail, it was nice, cruisy terrain up and down. Quite nice to maintain a decent pace for an ultra. The only thing with Tahoe that stands out is it was meant to be like 202 miles. It ended up being 217 miles, which I built my sleep strategy. Again, all about the sleep strategy. It's a big part of these longer distances. And I built my strategy around the distance. And as soon as I hit that distance, just went straight off a cliff. I should have probably slept for like another 20 minutes, 40 minutes would have made a big difference. So Tahoe was good. Finished 19th in Tahoe. Was pretty pleased with that. I think I probably could have like pushed for top 15, but I had that meltdown towards the end. And then I only had 2 weeks to turn it around to run Bigfoot because they'd had 58 foot of snow in Tahoe during the winter of 22 and 23. It meant that they couldn't run the race in June. They had to move it to the middle of July, the back end of July. I think it was about the 16th. And then 2 weeks later, we had Bigfoot up in the Pacific Northwest. And I know there was a lot of people that pulled out of the Triple Crown last year because they didn't really fancy a 2-week turnaround on a 200-mile race. And I thought, well, I'm in now. I'm committed. I'm coming from quite a long way away. And I honestly wanted to just get out there and give it the best I could. And actually, I think in a way, I just realized that, it would be a unique achievement in a little way because you're never really going to have 200-mile races in 2 weeks. So went out to Bigfoot after Tahoe. And I think Bigfoot, in my opinion, is the hardest of the three. 47,000 feet of elevation gain, 209 miles. And it's all like it's the kind of country, when you watch like one of those documentaries and they're like, oh, I swear I saw a Bigfoot last week. It's like that kind of vibe you got going off. Very, very remote, no phone service, long climbs, remote climbs, difficult. And then on the very last day of the race, you've got 13 miles, half marathon back to town. You come out, spat out of the woods onto the road in the middle of nowhere. And that's your first sign of like any civilization for, God, I don't know, 70 odd hours. And 13 miles back to town. I got into the last aid station before this section. They went, Scott, just want to let you know it's going to be a bit hot down on the road. I was like, oh, okay, fine. How hot is it? And they're like, it's about 110. I'm like, what? Hang on. It was 42 degrees Celsius, like running the last 13 miles of that race. And unexpectedly hot and challenging to kind of carry those fluids. So that was good. It went well. Finishing 35th in that one, but I knew it was going to be a challenge because you're kind of running against not just the people doing the Triple Crown, but also the people that are just turning up just for Bigfoot. So
Fresh. Yeah.
yeah, fresh. So I was like, yeah, I'm pretty chuffed with that. Pretty pleased. Kept me in the hunt for the Triple Crown. And then Moab, obviously that was in October, so I had a proper rest between Bigfoot and Moab. And Moab is a different vibe to the other two. Obviously, you've got the extra distance of the 40 miles, but I think the thing that for me that makes Moab quite challenging is that it's 30 degrees in the day, but then -4 at night. And when you set off, and again, you'll know this, like when you set off in a cold race, you're probably going to be cold for most of the race. And it's the same with like running Badwater, you're going to be hot and you're going to be hot for the whole race. But at Moab, it makes it more difficult because, you know, you start off on these races, you're going to get more and more tired. And the likelihood of you making a mistake, like, you know, middle of the afternoon, you're taking layers off, you're shoving ice down your pack, and you could easily just walk out of an aid station, leave your puffer jacket behind, and then guess what? The sun goes down, it's -4, and your race is over. So it's very challenging, but a very, very pretty place to run as well, because it's all that kind of cowboy, Western American vibe. You've got deserts, you've got canyons, and then you've got mountains. I think the highest climb, like tops up at Shea Mountains, about 11,500 feet. The La Salle Mountains are all mountains over 11,000. And yeah, it's a technical and challenging race, but I would highly recommend it. It's so pretty.
Yeah, that's
amazing. Is it on your list?
So I want to do my focus for
many
this
races on the list, isn't it?
my focus for this year is now, because I've spent like more or less spent like 2 years focused on doing the spine, like doing other races and preparing for it and stuff. I feel like at the minute I'm kind of done with the really long stuff at the minute. And what I was going to do this year was just go back to doing 50Ks, which was always my like speciality distance, was 50K. Yeah. Between 50K and 50 milers, I've always done pretty well at them. But I always wanted to do the longer stuff and just to see if I was any good at it, and I'm not.
No, I don't think, mate, anyone that finishes spine is good at
it. So I'd said to the wife, yeah, I'm going to focus on some 50 milers. But then a friend of mine, Stu, who's got a race company in the Peak District, he's doing Ranger Ultras. They're doing like a Pennine, it's the Pennine Bridle Way they're doing a race on. So it's not the Pennine Way, it's the Pennine Bridle Way, which is like similar route, but it's all obviously like wider roads and I think it's a little bit easier terrain and stuff. And he's putting on a couple of races, like, and one's like a 240 kilometer, like 260 something miles. And he's like, you should come and do that in April. And I was like, oh, that sounds. He's like, I'll give you a really good discount if you advertise it on the podcast. So here's your advert, Stu.
That was seamlessly done as well. Very good, very good.
Managed to get it in there. So I said to the wife, I was like, oh, how about if I just did it? It's only, you know, like saying it's only 160 miles. When you've gone from, you know, like yourself, like from the spine 268. Saying it's only 160 miles, you think you're going to get away with it, sort of thing. And she's like, no, you said you were going to do short races this year. You can't be gone for days on end. So I'm like,
you just got to be, well, define short, because 160 is short now compared to 200 or 260.
Well, I was even looking at 100 milers for this year and thinking, yeah, well, it's only 100 miler. It's only 100 miler. It's fine.
It's really weird how perspectives change, isn't it? If you've said to the man on the street, hey, I'm just going to run 100 miles, you know, pretty much 99.999% of the world's population would look at you and go,
"You've gone out.
There's something wrong with this guy. Let's get him back to the hospital." Whereas you do a 200 miler and you look at 100 and you're like, that's only one night out. It's the same as going out for the night. Yeah, I'll have a night out doing 100 mile. Get run drunk instead of actual drunk.
Yeah. That's a good point then. I loved having hallucinations on my longer races. Did you have any hallucinations on your 200s?
I've had a few incidents of hallucinations, some worse than others. I didn't really have any hallucinations during the Triple Crown, but I think that's come from uh, like all things really, experience and trying to figure out my sleep strategy that worked for me. And I think the interesting thing with sleep is that everyone's different, and there's no like solid fix of like sleep 5 minutes, you're going to be fine. It's just not the way it works, and everyone's different. So the first time that I ran Moab in 2019, I made the mistake of ignoring sleep deprivation and just thought I could run as far as I possibly can. So I ran 200 odd miles, and I got into the 200-mile aid station, and my crew and my pacers were there, and they said, "Scott, how was your night?" I said, "Well, it was pretty good actually. I met these two cowboys out on the trail." They said, "Scott, it was -4 last night and you're at 10,000 feet. There were no cowboys on the trail." I'd hallucinated the whole thing. And I maintain they were really nice guys because they told me I was doing all right, which I was at that point. I was sat in 15th place. And then basically I left the aid station and I made it down to mile 220, and things had started to go a little bit awry, but I was still moving at that point. So I came into the aid station and they said, "How are you feeling?" I said, "Oh, I feel really tired." They said, "Well, look, you just need to be done now. We can't have you out here for like a fourth night of running. Let's just get you some Pro Plus. We'll get you a couple of cans of Red Bull. Get out of here." So they got me that. They took some of my kit out of my pack so it wasn't too heavy, all the rubbish and stuff. Off I went down the trail, and then things went even further awry. I started falling over and getting getting back up, and then trying to sleep in the bush, all that kind of stuff. Just really, really confused. And then things took a more sinister turn when I started getting chased by a witch. So I ran away from the witch like you do as quickly as possible, and I hid under a rock. And they later told me it took a few hours to find me, but when they did, I could hear this witch's voice kind of calling out, "Scott, Scott, where are you?" And eventually she kind of stuck her head under this rock and said, "Get out from under that rock." And I did the only thing I knew how, which was to make the crucifix signal, which, with your fingers crossed, which basically is internationally proven to ward off witches and, of course, vampires. It's true, I promise. So I said, "Away, witch, away," to which the witch responded, "I'm not a witch. I'm your bloody wife, you absolute idiot. Get out from under the rock." So hallucinated and I maintain I'm factually correct. She is indeed a witch. They kill me because I love telling the story, but it's that's the one which really stands out, and it basically resulted in me going from 15th place at Moab to finishing in 35th place. I lost 20 spots in the last 16 miles of a 240-mile race. But I guess the true learning of failure is not just talking about learning from those things, but actually having the courage to kind of alter your course of action when you're later faced with the same circumstances. And in 2021, with my travel dispensation still in tow, I managed to wind my way back to the Moab 240, and I ran the race, got to mile 200 at this time, and I was like, "No, I'm going to sleep. I'm going to sleep." And I slept, got a good nap, got back up, carried on running, and I was joined by a pacer called Jason. Jason was the guy that actually convinced me to come out from under the rock in 2019, which was really cool. And he came and ran the last 40 miles with me. And he brought me home in the 15th place that I should have finished in 2019, which was just redemption in a way. It was really nice, and set the British course record for that race then. So I was pretty pleased with that. It was a nice end to the story, and then went back for more this year. No hallucinations though.
The sleep thing's funny, isn't it? Because it can even change. You think you've got it dialed in. I know, like from this year. So in the last summer, I did the Spine Challenge in North, did the top section 160, and I slept, and I purposely slept on the second night for like 2.5 hours, something like that. I aimed for like 3 hours, but I didn't get 3 hours. And that worked perfectly. Like that, I was managed to get all the way to the end with just a little nap by the trail, literally like a 15-minute nap.
Yeah.
So I just assumed that would work in the winter race, but it didn't. It was like my sleep was sort of. I think I've tried to sleep too much. I think I've got in my head that I'd interviewed a really clever guy. I can't remember his name now. It was a sleep specialist, and he was saying like try and aim for like a full sleep cycle. So 90 minutes is a full sleep cycle. So I was like, well, 3 hours is 2 full sleep cycles. That's what I'm going to aim for. But in reality, I actually didn't need as much sleep as I thought I needed. So I was trying to go to sleep for like an hour and a half, and I was probably only getting like 45 minutes, maybe an hour top sort of thing, and just thinking, I haven't had enough sleep. But in reality, I had, and the thing that had worked for me in the summer didn't work for me in the winter, because I suppose, and that's another thing that can change with what time of year it is and stuff like that, and whether it's cold, whether it's hot. If you found that.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's so many variables on the sleep thing, and I think it's still, as you said earlier, like the distance is still a relatively new distance. It's not like people have been doing it for 30 years. So I think people are still figuring out what works for them. But I've certainly found like I will not eat any caffeine like 4 hours before sleeping, whether it's in gel or Red Bull or any kind of form of caffeine. I taper it off like 4 hours before I know I'm going to sleep. That seems to help. And I think the other thing is like you said, when you've got extremes of temperature that are like, whether it's really cold, really hot, I find that very difficult to sleep in, obviously, because you're either shivering or you're absolutely baking. So I think the timing of the sleep is very, very important. Trying to keep it as kind of normal as possible. Yeah, I think it's still an area that I haven't found a way really to get under a 3 hour amount, whether that's in one sleep or in sections of sleep, so to speak. I mean, you've seen someone like Jack Scott, absolutely smashed by it. And it's astonishing. It really is. Like, because, having been in that situation without sleep, it's so hard to continue functioning in a way that's, just keeps you moving, let alone running at that kind of speed. So very, very impressive. And it'd be interesting to know exactly what his strategy was for sleep, if he just did none whatsoever, which is amazing if that's the case.
From speaking to him before, he'd sort of spoke to him after last year's race, and he was pretty much like falling asleep on his feet, like he was. I think he intended to not try and sleep anywhere, and I think that was his undoing towards the end of that race. But he's saying how he like sort of just lay in the snow and just started to go to sleep, and then woke up freezing cold and realized it was a bad idea to try and just fall asleep.
It's amazing, incredible performance that as well.
Yeah, amazing. But he said he was like leaning against his poles and trying to sleep, stood up. Um,
It's mad, isn't it? Because it's like, for me personally, there's like a tipping point where I go from kind of functioning and moving efficiently down the trail to like, wow, it's like trying to herd a drunk on a night out into a cab, right?
That's exactly what I found, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting, still learning, and I guess that's what keeps you coming back as well, is continuing to
that's
try
it.
to improve.
Yeah, trying to do something a bit different. I know that in the summer when I was on the last morning, I got through the last night and I thought, great, the sun's up, perfect. It's in I mean, you know what it's like. You're tired in those like the wee small hours of the night, like early hours of the night. You're like super tired, and then the sun comes up and it's like it's a new day and you're sort of revitalized. So I got that on the last day and I thought, I'm golden now. This is it. I'm fine. I'll be fine all the way to the end. But then I like went off course, couldn't figure out why I'd gone off course. Was like looking at bits of like like the bog where they've got like where the bogs look like they're almost like waves where there's a brown like opening in it. I was looking at them thinking, oh, they look so comfy. I could just go and lie down and sleep in there. And I was like, no, I need to get back on the trail. If I try and go sleep here, I'm off course, and the safety team will be like, what's he doing? Why is he off course? Why is he not moving? And it's amazing how your brain is just doesn't work. And then, but all it took was literally just sit against the fence, fall asleep. 20 minutes later, someone came by, woke me up, and that was it. I was fine to the end. You wouldn't think that you'd gone through like a couple of nights and just literally having like 20 minutes leant against the fence would be enough to get, just to put your mind right so that you could just physically function and put one foot in front of the other.
It's really interesting, like how we can convince ourselves that patches of grass look so comfortable as well. Like, oh, bit of moss, that's going to make a nice pillow. You're like, oh, that bench, I bet that's really comfy to sit on, that kind of thing. At the beginning, you're like, oh, I wouldn't want to sit there. And at the end, you're like, oh, it looks amazing. Can't wait to lie down on that old disused bus shelter.
I slept. I remember a guy telling me when I was on the checkpoint, when I worked on the checkpoint in Middleton like a couple of years ago, how he said how he like got into a telephone box and tried to sleep in a telephone box, stood up. And at the time, I was like, what kind of a state must you be in to just think that you can go into a telephone box and fall asleep? And then he was laughing because he'd left his poles in there, and that was it. He hadn't got his spare poles, and he got the rest of the race to go and he left his poles there. And I was like,
haven't you ever been into a phone box when you're drunk on a night out? It's the same thing. Just without a bag of 10p's to call.
But it's it's amazing the places that look comfortable into it. I know so on the last morning for the spine, I slept on at Burness, as the church that you can go in. Everybody goes into the lads use the church for sleeping, and everyone, like, people getting the sleeping kit out and everything there. But I literally just got in there and knew I needed to sleep and just took my bag off and literally lay on the wooden floor and just fell asleep, and just then started to feel cold, obviously, after about 15 minutes. And then I was like, oh, I'm cold, right, get up, go.
Yeah,
but it was enough.
Nothing worse, is there, when you're like really tired towards the back end of the race, and then you start to have a decent sleep, and then you wake up and you're like, oh,
we've got to finish this.
Still got 60 miles to go. That feeling in the middle of the night, you're just like, oh my God. I was going to ask you a question, actually. I'm actually heading up to the Lake District, Lake District, like, I say that, like Penrith area, in a couple of weeks' time, actually. I was going to go out onto Crossfell and do a run there. That's what I was thinking of doing, as a training run. Any advice for me? What's it like up there?
I'd go from which end were you planning on going up from? Did you see which end?
The south of Penrith, and then up through is it the Hut area to
so going up that's probably like, so if you go up from Greg's Hut side, that's probably got like the most, that's just like a track that you can follow all the way up. It's dead easy past Greg's Hut and everything. But if you come from the other side, I can't remember the name of the village that you come through. It's gone out of my head now.
Dufton, is it?
It might be, yeah, it's Dufton, actually. Yeah, from Dufton, it's a bit more. Well, actually, I suppose if the weather's all right, then the trail will be clear. But it's when I went up there, and just everything was covered in snow. But unfortunately, I pretty much knew the route from doing it in the summer anyway, so I kind of knew where I was going. But it was difficult, but because there was a guy died up there, wasn't there, in December? The guy went and died. So yeah, it's, you know.
Right, when you go into these kind of environments. I was thinking of going to check it out anyway.
Do it. Yeah, definitely do it. I mean, there's nothing that, you're an experienced ultra runner. There's nothing that I would say to be careful of. Just, I don't know what, I think there's actually phone signal all the way over the top of there as well, actually. So it's not, I don't think it's a particularly, although someone did die up there. Yeah.
Thanks for that cheery advice. I appreciate
that. And yeah, make sure you go to Greg's Hut, although you won't get the chili noodles that everybody goes there for.
Maybe I can take a bottle of whiskey in my pack.
That'd be better, yeah. I think I would have, maybe would have had a shot of whiskey when I was there, actually.
I've actually had a shot of whiskey a couple of times mid-race. So there's at Bigfoot, there's an aid station called the Lewis River Aid Station. And the first time I did that race in 2021, middle of nowhere, like, I can't explain to you like how remote this is. Like, you're talking probably like well over 100 miles from like the nearest town. And you're coming up this old Forest Service road, and there's all these inflatable dinosaurs, and I'm thinking, oh my God,
Are you
it's a
hallucinated?
bit early for the hallucinations. And then there's just this table, and it's got like Maker's Mark, Knob Creek, like Woodford Reserve, all these whiskies. And I'm like, I love whiskey when, I'm not running, obviously, normally. I was like, is this a mirage? Is this real? And I go over and I'm like, oh no, it's definitely real. So I had one on my way into the aid station. I was like, do we, just inquiring, do we go back the same way? And they're like, yeah, right back down the hill and you're going to take a left. I'm like, wonderful, because I'm going to stop at the bar on the way back down as well. So 2 shots of whiskey. That was that time. And then in Cocodona, that's another great race as well. Cocodona down in Arizona, 250 miles from Black Canyon City to Flagstaff. And in the middle of it, you come through this small town called Prescott, which is like a quintessential like American cowboy town. I'd been there before the race and like went into this one bar. I'm talking about a lot about drinking. I don't drink that much, but I do like a whiskey now and again. And it's got like the whole bar from the original like bank, which was burning down, and they let the bank burn down, but then they got the wooden panels and turned it into the bar on the other side of the square. So hence that particular street is called like Whiskey Row, and the aid station's right in the middle of the street. So like it's right next to the bar. So you go in and they've got like, a little mini bar and serving pizzas and whiskey. So I had a whiskey in there as well, which is good. Maybe I could do like a TripAdvisor ultra running
Yeah.
whiskey. That would
Mm.
be good
Oh,
content actually.
yeah, tour of the whiskey stops. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. I know I've had a pint of lager shandy in a race, in a hot race. There's a race around Derby called the Nomad 50,
Yeah.
which I've done a few times, and it's always like, I think it's always like mid-June, so it's always really warm, usually really warm. And because I know the route, I knew that this aid station was a pub, like outside a pub and everything. And I was
Perfect.
thinking, like, I was dehydrated and I ran out of fluids and everything. And I was obsessing over this aid station and getting fluid from there. And I just kept thinking, well, could have a pint. I could have a pint. I could have a pint of lemonade. Could have a pint of Coke. No, the Coke will be too much sugar. What about something a bit in between? So I could have, like, yeah, a lager shandy. So I got there. I had a lager shandy, and it was ice cold. It was absolutely perfect. Just
Beautiful.
stood there drinking, and the like the aid station staff kind of like looking at me like, what's he doing? And I like, it's basically necked this pint of lager shandy. Felt great. I was like, perfect. That's just hit the spot. That's great. Literally got half a mile up the road. Started spewing it back up again.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh
And
man.
then I was spewing for like the next 10 miles.
Hey, there's been a couple of incidents like where I've had a proper beer right in the middle of the race, and somehow I've managed to keep it down. But similar to yourself, like, and I'm sure listeners will relate to this. Sometimes you just got to find something to hold on to keep you moving forward.
Yeah, yeah,
It could be a slice of pizza, or like you say, when it's really hot. Like there has been occasions, like I can think in Cocodona, and in Bigfoot where it was really, really hot. And all I could think of, I mean, it was the fourth day of Cocodona. I've been out there for 4 days, and it was really, really warm. Coming to the aid station, and I was just sick to death for like Tailwind, Coke, Red Bull, whatever. I was just like, I can't take any more of this. And I looked at the aid station volunteer. I was like, have any of you got a beer? And they were like, no. I'd been running past these like, these trailheads where like there were caravans and the big RVs, and they've got air conditioning and beers and stuff in there, and I couldn't get out of my head. So I left the aid station, and great thing about Cocodona, I'm sure you've seen it, is that they streamed the whole race. They've got these two poor guys that are sat in a studio somewhere dingy in Arizona commentating on what is not particularly a spectator sport for 6 days or whatever it is. And for the first time in the race, miraculously leaving this aid station, I was like, oh, I've got phone signal. And I was obviously feeling pretty awake at that point. So I went on to the live stream, And then I decided that I would start contributing to the live stream. So I started typing them a message, said, "Hi, it's Scott here. I'm the only British runner in the race this year." And like, "Oh, we got a guy who's live in the field. He's running. He's dialing in right now." And I'm like, "I have a question. Does anyone have a beer? Because I'm going to be at the Fort Tuthill aid station in about 4 hours, but 3 hours if somebody's got a beer." And then they were like, "We should crowdsource this guy a beer. We got to get this guy a cold one." So I was like, "Perfect. I'll see you in 3 hours." And I was true to my word. I got down there, and out of nowhere, this complete stranger walked up to me as I was coming into the aid station. And she's like, "Scott?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And she's like, "There you go. Got you your beer." I was like, "That is amazing." So the good use of technology coming into helping ultra running there. And I didn't puke it up either, just
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah. I think mine was probably more to do with the fact that I'd been dehydrated for a few hours before that, and
I think it's because you had a shandy. I think if you had a proper one, no problem.
yeah, you deserve to be sick if you're a shandy pants. Yeah.
No comment, but yes.
Um. So out of the three races that make up the Triple Crown, then which one have you got an absolute favorite, or do they just kind of all sort of blur into one?
Do you know what? I'm conscious of like them all blurring into one, and what I have tried to do is like go back and look at my photos and my video clips every now and again, just to kind of try to remember them as separate races, so to speak, because it was such a massive adventure and something that will stick with me for so long that I really need to find a way. I'm not very good at this, but like documenting what it was like, and I've got so many clips and footage which I need to pull into a video at some point to stick on YouTube. But um, I liked all of them in different ways and hated them all in different ways as well. Tahoe was incredible, like so pretty. Lots of forest trail running, amazing views of like crystal blue lake, Lake Tahoe. The memory that sticks with me most from Tahoe is running up the trail on the third day of the race and had my pacer with me, and he's like, "Dude, stop!" And I'm like, "Why?" And he's like, "There's two bear cubs in the trail," and we just looked at these two bear cubs, and with that, you just heard all these branches snapping, and then this mother bear just stood up in the bush, and we were just face to face with this black bear that was enormous, and it was literally like 20 meters away. I'm like, "What do we do?" He's like, "Don't move," and then it just took off into the bushes. The cubs went with it, and that was it. But it's something that will stick with me for a long, long time. Bigfoot. I've done Bigfoot twice. I've also DNF Bigfoot back in 2021 because I was running that 2 weeks after Badwater, which was a bad idea. It's a relentless race. Like I said, 47,000 feet again is always going to be difficult up, but also it's 47,000 feet down as well. Very remote, but you spend a lot of time in like heavy Pacific Northwest forest. But every time you do, you're rewarded with these beautiful views of like Mount Hood, Mount St. Helens, Mount Rainier. It's just a really spectacular race for the views, but they probably only last max 2 hours for the whole 80 hours of running. And then Moab is, one of my all-time favorite races. Like I say, I've run it 3 times, and it's just spectacular. Like the Red Rock Canyons, snow-capped mountains. It's just such a long distance, iconic race, and yeah, definitely highly recommend it. Again, the memory that sticks out, apart from finishing the Triple Crown, which was very nice. It was actually it wasn't the last night, but like the night before the last night, we were climbing through the La Salles, and I was with my pacer, Devon, and we were coming up the trail again, but this time off to the left-hand side, caught some movement in the bushes, and I immediately thought, "Oh, deer over there." And I checked again, and it was two mountain lion, and they're 400 pounds worth of
Yeah.
apex predator, and it's not something that you have to think about running in London, and it seems
Yeah.
quite comfortable now. But I was honestly so tired at the time that I was just like,
Brushed it off.
"What do we do?" And then Devon's like shouting, he's like, "Make noise, make noise." We did that for a minute, and these cats were just staring at us, and I'm like, "What? This isn't working. Shut up." So I was just like, let's just walk. And we just walked up the trail, and then we got around a corner and carried on running. I caught up to this American guy who was about to bed down. I was like, dude, you're not going to believe, like, you were just in front of us. He was like, what, man? I was like, there's two mountain lion back there. He's like, no. I was like, look at this video. And I've got a video on my phone, and you can clearly see the two mountain lion with their eyes like flicking in the headlight. It's creepy. So yeah, that sticks with me as well. But like finishing the Triple Crown was nice, and yeah, to be the first Brit, I'm proud of, and yeah, it just seems like an adventure in the past now, and I'm like, what next? Let's do something else.
Before I ask you what is next, we've got to talk about three things I want to talk to you about, which is Ultra. So
Yeah,
I'm a big Ultra fan. I've recently gone back to Ultra. I had to have a bit of a break from Ultra because I had an issue with my knee, and I was told by my specialist that I needed to completely change my shoes and do something else. So I had probably like a year of just wearing like traditional shoes with drop and everything. But I've managed to get back into Ultras again. So I absolutely love Ultras. It's
they're
such good.
amazing shoes, mate. And the testimony for me would be, don't just take my word on it. Look at the races that I've run in them, and I can't talk highly enough of them. Both the Lone Peak and the Mont Blancs are my favorite models. Started the first race in Tahoe in the Lone Peaks, and then midway, because I knew I was going to be on that single track that was like, nice runnable. I was like, I don't need a Vibram on this part of the race. And then got into Tahoe City Aid Station where it gets a bit more rocky, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to swap to the Vibram now on the Mont Blanc. And it was like putting new tires on to cruise across the rocks. They were absolutely brilliant, those shoes. And they dry out so quick. Like there's a lot of river crossings at Bigfoot, and like they would dry out super quick. Like no, the only like time I got blisters were just my own fault for not like changing my socks early enough. But like I got like two blisters the whole of Bigfoot, which is crazy, really.
That's good. Yeah, really
Yeah.
good. Yeah, yeah. Lone Peaks and Olympus for longer runnable stuff for me because a bit more cushioning in the Olympus. But I love the Lone Peaks for like the feel of
Yeah.
feeling like almost like your feet are gripping on the rocks themselves, like having an extra pair of hands.
Have you
Love them.
tried the Mont Blancs?
No, never had a pair of Mont Blancs.
Honestly, a massive fan. I've tried the Olympus. I've got some Olympus as well, and I like them. But I think like the Mont Blanc offers that Vibram sole that you get on the Olympus, but it's a bit of a lighter shoe for me. Yeah, so I really really like the Mont Blancs. There's also really excitingly, there's a new one coming later this year as well. I think in April time. Where they've redesigned the heel. The heel's a little bit nicer too, and it's got a carbon footplate in it, and it looks amazing.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah, I did buy a pair of the Vanish carbon road shoes.
yeah.
Um, and I actually did a 100K in the
Oh
Peak
wow.
District because I knew that the race I was doing, I knew that there was a lot of runnable trail, which was fine, and there was a lot of runnable trail and a couple of bits of road sections and stuff which they were perfect for. But then there was a couple of like really slidey, grassy trail bits that I regretted wearing them for. I was sliding about the backside, but for what I gained in on the harder ground, I definitely thought it was the right decision. Yeah,
Nice.
great shoes. Yeah, the other thing is yeah, Vespa. So many
Yeah.
many years ago, I think I was probably I'm trying to think when it was probably about 5 or 6 years ago. I got into Vespa and on the recommendation of your coach, um, Jeff Bronco Billy. I mean, sort of probably about 7 years ago. It was probably about 7 years ago. I sort of dived into low carb and went sort of like full on headfirst into it. Listened to every podcast that I could listen to, like Zach Bitter, everything. I interviewed Zach Bitter.
Cool.
Listened to everything that Jeff has ever recorded on podcasts. view him as like he basically is like the king of low carb, isn't he?
Absolutely, yeah. On it at the moment.
What do you what are your thoughts on it? Because I couldn't tell whether it worked or not for me. I couldn't really tell any difference, but then I don't know whether I had enough sort of information on my own running to sort of compare previous with and without it as far as I could tell.
Yeah.
Maybe, to be honest, I wasn't running long enough. Maybe it was while I was still doing shorter races, and maybe it would have come in a bit more for the longer stuff. What's your experience been with it?
My experience has been really, really positive. So I started using it at Moab last year. So I didn't use it for the first two races. And it resulted in me carrying more carbohydrates, more food, basically. Then at Moab, the first like 40 miles were great. Ran out of water coming into the 50 mile-ish aid station, and I vomited everything up, and my stomach was completely empty. And I'm like, this isn't good. And it was literally because I ran out of water. It's a big section. It's like, I think it's about 25 miles, like with only one water at the beginning and then 25 miles to the aid. And I ran out about 4 miles from there. Anyway, long story short, I was like, right, I need to try and force down some ginger ale, force that down, it stayed down for a little bit, puked up, run into the island, which is like at 68, something like that. Got into the aid station. Jeff was like, look, let's try you on the Vespa, like get that down, let's see how it goes for the next section. So I took some of that with me, and I took some gels, and I took some plantains. I was like, I'll snack on the plantains, I'll take the Vespa. Got through the next section. I was like, actually, I feel really good again. And it was a marked difference in my performance before taking the Vespa and then after. So I was like, I need some more of that, Jeff. Let's have some more. And we did it again, and it worked, and again and again. And I was like, this is really, really working well for me. So all I was doing was putting a Ziploc bag together at each aid station, gels, a couple of Vespa, like two Vespa, maybe three on the longer stuff, and then plantains. And that's all I was carrying with me for like 20-mile sections of Moab 240. And it worked, absolutely worked. Like I say, finished in 14th place last year. So I was really pleased with that. And yeah, fourth place male, fifth overall for the Triple Crown. And I think a lot of the wheels would have fallen off completely if I hadn't found Vespa in that last race. What I thought, and this is purely anecdotal, after the race, like that distance, I'm normally absolutely ravenous and can't stop eating. I had like a pizza and a half, and then I wasn't feeling the same kind of levels of hunger that I normally have after a race like that. I was kind of ambivalent. I was like, yeah, let's get something to eat. Not like, oh my God, I've got to eat something now kind of thing. And then subsequently just carried on using it in my training. And I'm like, yeah, this is really good. So I'm going to be using it again this year. Vespa very kindly got me involved with the brand as well. And yeah, really, really like it. Very, very happy with it and going to stick with it. I still think like I need some carbs alongside it on those longer races. But for me, I'm sold on it. I think it's great.
Maybe I'll have to dive back into it again and try it
Yeah,
out.
definitely. It's definitely worth a try for
I
sure.
think I've still got a couple of sachets. The silver one,
Yeah, CV25, I think it is.
yeah, the concentrated one. Yeah, I think I've still got. They're probably gone out of date by now, I'd imagine. So.
Ah, they'll be good.
Yeah. So you going on a coaching call now then with Jeff, are you?
I got a call with Jeff in like 15 minutes time, so we'll be
Yeah.
chatting
So
about plans and stuff for this year. But the other people I wanted to give a shout out to as well is USWE, which are now my pack sponsor, which
yeah,
is pretty cool. And I met them and the team in the run show in Boston in January. Tried their pack, and I was like, wow, this isn't bouncing around at all like normal packs. So I'm like, let's give this a try, and tried it out, and I was like, wow, this is great. So yeah, now working with them as well, which is really cool. So yeah,
brilliant.
looking forward to this season with the packs.
Excellent. Right. Well, I wish you wherever your adventures take you next. I wish
Thank
you
you.
all the best with it.
Thank you so much for having me on, Sam. And likewise, I'd like to wish you all the best with all your adventures as well. And congratulations on everything you've been achieving, mate. And I'll have to be hitting you up for some spine tips, I'm sure, in the next couple of years.
Yeah, I've got plenty of them. I've got but hours and hours of podcasts you can listen to.
That would be awesome. I mean, my approach to spine is that I've always wanted to do it. I just wanted to get experience in running 200 milers, but also I want to make sure that I run the summer spine first so that I can familiarize myself with
Yeah, that's
the
a good
route.
idea.
Yeah, I think so. And then, I
So,
seem to be better the more that I've done a route. I get a feel for it kind of thing. So yeah, that's what my plan is. We'll see.
yeah, good plan. Yeah, definitely. Well, thanks again. Appreciate you giving us your time. Thanks for coming on.
Pleasure. Thanks for
Thank
having me
you.
on.
Cheers, mate. Thank you.
Yeah, bye.
Bye bye.